In this tutorial, we're going to learn about XAML basics. When we launch our first project, we're going to get this example, a label. This is the default Avalonia example. So we get this text block with horizontal text and vertical alignment. So text block is like a label and it's a control, and horizontal alignment is a property which has center value, and same with text and vertical alignment. We can also add another property, for example, font size. Font size, let's say 24. You can see in the previewer. We can also add event. For example, generally events are in the button. So let's create a button. And then let's do content. Let's call it btn. So we are getting error. It's because when we have one control, we can add it alone. But once we have more than one, it has to be inside the layout. And we're going to create a StackPanel layout. Alright, as you can see, okay, let's move it in the center, horizontal alignment center. Okay, if we want it to be the same vertical alignment, we need to move the vertical alignment in the stack panel. Let's copy this. Alright, as you can see, and in the btn there is event. For example, click event. When you click on it, something happens. Let's say you can see event as the light icon. Let's say create, you can name it anything and just press OK, and now it take me automatically XAML code behind. You can see in the view here, here's our XAML, and behind it there is a code behind. So what we can do, once you click it, something should happen. Let's close the window. For close, just write close, and that's it. Let's run our code. Alright, here it is. So if we click on the button, it should close. As you can see, the button closed. That's an event. Okay, we looked about controls and properties, and the first layout, which is StackPanel. For StackPanel, the default is vertical orientation. They stuck like that. But if you want to be horizontally, you just need to change the orientation. There's orientation, let's say horizontal, and you can see the difference. Okay, now let's go into talk about the grid layout. Okay, let's write grid. And to create in grid, we should create rows and columns. So let's create two rows. Grid.row definitions. And here we have row definition. So it has a height. The first one I'm going to do auto. Auto means fits the content. And for the second one, I'm gonna write asterisk. And this means take the remaining space. So first one takes just the space that it needs, and the asterisk means take the remaining space. Okay, let's write it here just to remember. Fits content. Okay, and here I'm gonna say takes the remaining space. Okay, and then inside the grid, we're going to create two controls, two buttons. And let's say content. Let's write btn1, and let's do the second one. Okay, second one and 2. The first control we don't need to write grid.row. We should write grid.row and give it the second. So the count is start from 0. We can actually do this grid.row in the first one. Grid.row is equal to 0, but even when you don't define it, it's always going to take the first one, which is 0. And you can see first one is in the preview is in the first row, and second is in the second row. Actually, I want to be here. Second one to be here. This is the first column and the second column. Okay, we can do it. So here, the same way, I'll drag that above, the same way, so grid.column definitions and column, and here we have width for column. The same thing, let's say auto, it takes just the space that it needs, and then second one, take the remaining space. And for the second one, let's say I want to row 0, but column 1. Grid.column which is column 1. Yeah, column 1. Yeah, so the button is here because it's taken just what it needs. Okay, that's why it stopped here. So if we push it, if you want to push the button a little bit to the right, you can use the property margin. We go here it starts from the left. So this is 20 left, and then top, right, and bottom. Okay, that's a short example on how to use the grid. Okay, now I want to show you how it's taken this auto and asterisk. I want to encapsulate this inside a stack panel. Alright, and the second one too. But the grid alignment should be in the stack. So let's drag these, copy, and put them here. But we're going to add a background color. Let's separate these. Okay. Now in the stack panel, we're going to say background property. Let's say something that we can differentiate. Let's say brisk. Okay. That's because it's just taking what it needs. Not that it's coloring not the button, the space. And here, let's say background property and another color. Okay, yeah, you can see from the second one, you can see that the asterisk does take the remaining space, as you can see, which means that we can actually center the button. We can remove the margin. Actually, when we do the horizontal, actually we are talking about here responsive design. That's horizontal alignment, center. Okay, as you can see, what it means by responsive design is that if we shrink it or make it bigger, it will always stay in the center. Let's run our code. All right, here it is. Okay, if we increase it, you can see it's always in the center. The button is always in the center. That's the meaning of responsive design. If you make it bigger, as you can see. Okay, now let's talk about the DockPanel. DockPanel, we're going to create two buttons. Let's say content, let's call it left. Content and dock, we have to add this property. It's important, dock it to the left, and let's duplicate twice. Top, and the last one we're not going to write anything. Remove the property. This means just take the remaining space. Let's call it fill. Okay, in order to see actually what's happening, wait a second, can we do background color, let's say brisk. Oh, you can see it. We have to encapsulate it into a stack panel. So let's write, okay, let's duplicate 3 times. Okay, we should move the dock property in the stack panel. Okay, the second one also add a background. Forgot to add the background. Let's say brisk. The second one, first one, change different color. Okay, something noticeable. No, and a background, and let's do aqua. Okay. And then we shouldn't do anything with the last one. Press enter. Press save to indent everything. As you can see, this is the meaning of the DockPanel left. Actually, this means that it's reserving the left part, and top is after that it's going to reserve the top, and fill it's going to take the rest. Okay, let's say no, actually I want to the top to take the wool width instead of the left taking that part. So this is very important. In DockPanel, ordering is very important. That's why in order to solve the problem of actually taking top the full width here, we need to, it should be the first. So here, let's copy the top part and paste it first. So now what's happening is that the top starts reserve the top, and then everything else. When the left come and take the place, it finds it that actually the top already reserved that place. That's how it works in DockPanel. So I already talked about StackPanel, Grid, and DockPanel. So StackPanel is generally for simple lists, and the Grid is for complex layouts like forms and dashboards, and this panel is for toolbars and side panels. Okay, we already talked about the alignment for responsive design. Let's say we want this in the center. Yes, we can center that way. Let's do a vertical alignment. Vertical alignment. Let's do center. Okay, it's not working. If we do it here, it's gonna work, but we're going to lose the color. As you can see, in order to solve this problem, we need to encapsulate it into a grid. We don't need to add any kind of color, just a grid. And now we can take the color this and put it here, as you can see. So that's how it works. And now if you want to center this, let's say horizontal alignment center and vertical alignment center. As you can see, it's working, but currently we lost the color because now actually the stack panel is actually this space only. So what we should do is actually do grid and add it inside, and we solved the problem. Just need to copy the color inside the grid as a property. What if we remove the stack panel like that? And do horizontal alignment center. Let's run our code to see how the responsive design works. Alright, I'm gonna change this color. It's really bright to me in my eye. Can I something light? Yes. I'm going to create a property for the brush. Let's do gray. Okay, let's do border thickness 2. Okay, I'm gonna copy it and paste it in all of 3. The property here and the property here, and now run it again. Okay, as you can see, the horizontal works. It's responsive. It's always in the center. And vertical is the same because we used alignment. Something which is not responsive is actually placing controls using margin. For example, instead of doing, for example, where is it? Horizontal center, for example, this one. Instead of center, for example, let's do margin, for example, 50. As you can see, now we pushed it 50 pixels to the right, and if we run, you can see that it's always in that place. If we run our code, you can see it's always in that place, as you can see. As we saw margin, okay, we can also do the top. Let's do 10 to push it, or actually apply 10 pixels for everything, all directions. As you can see, you can also add padding. So margin is space outside and padding is space inside. Let's do 50 in order to see the difference. You see, the difference is the space inside margin. Padding, sorry. Padding is space inside. Also responsive design, when we did using columns, when we did the auto and width, it's something that's automatic. So we're going to see in the mini project that we are going to create right now. Let's create again a grid layout, and let's add a grid dot column definitions and create column definition. Let's say the width is going to be auto, so depends the length of the control, and then the second one is going to take the remaining space, and here let's write button, and then the content, let's say fixed. This is a fixed content, and the second one is dynamic, or let's say stretchy. Okay, and let's write the grid dot column 1 because first one is already taken. Okay. And if we can do a horizontal alignment, let's just stretch. As you can see, it's taking the whole width here. You can also add a margin, a little bit margin to the left. So 10. Okay, just to push it a little bit to the right. Let's run it. Alright, here it is. So we drag it. As you can see, first one is fixed and second one fits the remaining space. Alright, so let's go do a small project, a mini project. Let's create something that looks like a dashboard. So the first layer that we're going to create is the DockPanel, which is the root layout. And let's start with the header. Let's write header. Let's put it inside another layout, which is stack layout. And the DockPanel top, so DockPanel.dock top. Okay, and then let's add the text or label text block and content. Alright. Let's put it in the center, so horizontal alignment center. Okay, increase the font size like 24. Okay, I want to add a little bit of padding. Let's say 20. Okay, and also I want to add a background color in the stack panel just to see the space that is taken. I want something dark like gray. Okay, it's color and everything. It's because it's the only part that is available. So let's create now the sidebar. So sidebar is going to be just 3 buttons. So I'm going to put it inside a stack panel too. So here DockPanel.dock and left. And let's create a background, and the background, let's say gray, and change different color. Okay, it's different. That's good. And buttons, so 3 buttons. Content. Let's call it home. And let's duplicate 3 times. Settings and about. Alright, and now, okay, wait, dock left, alright. We're going to increase, so we're going to set the width to 200. So it takes only 200 to it. Alright, and okay, going to add some margin. So the X5 and the Y, let's add everything, from everything. Yeah, I also want to add the width also to be just the same. You see that settings is taller, so let's do width, let's say 70. Okay, but we need to center the content, so horizontal content alignment center. Okay, let's add these 3 properties to the other. Okay. Oh, look at this. I think I need more. Wait a second. 75? Okay, let's set it to 75. This is the sidebar, so sidebar. The main menu. So the main menu is going to be a grid, because it has some rows and columns. So grid, and here let's do grid dot definition, and our definition, we're going to specify a height. So the height is going to be auto, which means depending on the content, and here asterisk, which means take the remaining space. So the first row is going to be the height depending on the content, and the second row, it takes the remaining content. Okay, let's add a text block. Text, let's say informations here, and the font size to 20. I think we need to add a margin. Let's say 10. Okay, that's it. This is the first row. Text block is here. And then we're going to create another inside this row. We're going to create another grid. You can call it even here title section, and here we're going to add the content. Okay, grid dot row, the first row, and then we're going to create two columns. So grid dot column definitions and column definition. So here we have the width because it's a column, so it's going to be asterisk because it's going to take the remaining space. Same with the second one, take the remaining space, which means it's going to be responsive. When we make it bigger or shrink it, it's going to be responsive. And now let's create two rows too. So grid dot row definitions and row definition. So height is going to be dynamic. The two rows are going to be dynamic. And now we're going to create like cards. So we're going to introduce you to a new control, which is the border. Let's create border, and it's on the first row and first column. Okay, we need to set a background so we can see it. Let's see dark gray. Okay, and then let's write something in it like text block. Let's say statistics. Okay, so horizontal, let's center it, horizontally, vertically, center, and vertical alignment, center. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of margin, 5 in all sides. Okay, now we're going to add another one, so just copy it and paste it. We are just going to change the grid dot row, change the index, so it's going to be here, which is the same row 0 but column 1. So row 0 and grid dot column 1. Okay, let's change the title here, statistics. Let's write math here as an example. The last one, this row, we're going to take it as 1, create the card as 1. So we're going to span the columns. Let's copy this one. It's going to be column 1 and not grid dot span 2. Okay, going to span the first and the second. Yes, and let's write, for example, recent activity. All right, that's how we use the grid layout. And let's add the footer. The footer here, so StackPanel and DockPanel dot dock and bottom. You notice that we are outside of the grid, so we finished with our main content, so we are outside. We got back to the DockPanel. You can just click here and see the blue line here. You see that actually we are actually right now in the DockPanel level. And let's add a background so we can see it. Let's do dark and something. I want something dark like this one. Okay, and let's add a text block and text. Let's call it footer as an example. Okay, you can see it's here. So why is that? It should be below here. So this is very important because ordering in DockPanel is very important. So what's happening right now is actually when we did the header actually reserved that space. And then when you created the sidebar went in here and found that actually this top part is already reserved by the header. So it drew the sidebar below it from here. So what we have to do is actually reorder the footer to be below the headers, so just it reserves this space from the beginning. So once the sidebar draws itself, it finds it's already the bottom here, it's already reserved. So let's copy this part and let's reserve our space here, and you can see it here. Okay, let's add horizontal alignment center. Okay, let's add a height. Let's change the font size to 24. So vertical alignment. So what we can do, actually do padding and for example 10, yeah, and we solved the problem. And now we can remove this, not need it anymore. That's how we draw something like this. Okay, let's run our code now. All right, so look, so it's also responsive. When we created the columns and rows, when we did the asterisk, so let's maximize it, as you can see. So this one is 200 width, the sidebar, and that's how we create a simple layout like that. So in this tutorial, we saw the DockPanel, which were the root layout. We used it to create the header, footer, and the main content, and the sidebar. We used the stack layout. We used the stack layout to vertically stack in. We used the grid for the main content cards in order to precise control overall cell sizes. We use the margin to space between the buttons and or elements. We used padding for inner space, and also we used alignment like horizontal alignment center to center text and buttons. And we also use the width, where we use the asterisk in width for the grid to make it adaptive to the window size. All right, see you in the next tutorial.